Hi, everyone. I'm Emilie Chang, and I'm here with Emilie Choi, President and COO of Coinbase, on another very exciting day and few weeks in crypto, as it always is. Emilie, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Emily. I love being on your show.
So it's been a huge year for Coinbase, and it is so hard to believe that your direct listing was just in April. Gosh, it feels like years ago already. What are your big takeaways from this year and the lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, I can't believe we went public this year either. I was thinking about it. I was like asking somebody, I was like, did we go public this year or was it last year? It's all a blur. I think this was definitely a breakout year for crypto, and it was kind of cool to just see how everything evolved. So from our perspective, I think this was the year that institutional finally really broke out. It was something that had been discussed for so many years. And we found institutions actually participating actively and growing in the space this year. DeFi, another huge trend. I think we're now at 150 billion of DeFi value in the market, and that was a number close to zero not too long ago. NFTs was obviously a big story for the year. And then I think for us, just being the first major crypto company to go public was kind of a watershed event for the whole community, I think. And so that was very special as well.
So everyone wants to know about the price. Are we heading into a crypto winter? You and I have talked many times over the last year. You always say crypto is a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. Is the roller coaster taking us into the winter?
We do not make any predictions about winters or summers. What I will tell you is that everybody who kind of disproportionately benefits from crypto tends to just ride it out on the long term and be holders throughout the ups and downs. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. The thing with the winters is the OGs in the space absolutely love the winters. Like Brian Armstrong loves a winter. And the reason that they love the winters is, frankly, the fakers get out of the space. The builders keep building. They can focus without all the crazy hype around.
The fakers, ouch.
Well, you know, what you'll see is that there, in whatever the next winter is, there will be companies that talked a big game about crypto, but then will pull out. And that's great because it means that the mission-oriented companies and the mission-oriented builders will stick through it and get disproportionate value as crypto grows. For Coinbase, the thing I learned was that we took advantage of these downturns to kind of buy Tagomi, which was the foundation for our prime brokerage. We bought Zappo, which was the foundation for us to be the largest crypto custodian in the world. So we tend to double down during those times when everyone else is fearful.
So talk to us a little bit about how crypto winters work, because as you say, you know, a lot of new investors are here, and especially over the last couple of years, a flood of new investors. They get scared, they go away, they don't understand the cycle. Mm-hmm. You know, how would you describe the cycle and what to prepare for?
I would describe the cycle as basically every cycle of crypto, there's been a new high and then there's a low. And with that low, there's actually a higher trough. So if you look at it on a short-term basis, what happens is it looks like, oh my goodness, it's crazy. And then if you look at the long term, it smooths out and then it creates this new higher kind of peak every time. And so, you know, it's just one of those things where you have to truly believe in the idea of it long term. And if you stick through it, it's great. If you're a short-term investor, it's probably not a great thing.
Coinbase just raised a lot of money via bonds over the fall. Is that Coinbase preparing for the crypto winter?
We see so much opportunity. I think the biggest struggle we have as a company is that we see no dearth of opportunity. From M&A to organic investment, we're now at 3,000 plus employees. And so we just want to be able to, as I mentioned, take advantage and double down when we see these incredible opportunities. And that includes everything from international to just the opportunities we're seeing within our core business.
Last week, Alessia Haas, your CFO, said at the crypto regulatory hearing on Capitol Hill that Coinbase now stores about 12% of the world's crypto assets. That is huge. Mm-hmm. How much bigger can Coinbase become and how fast?
I think that we can become bigger and bigger and bigger. I think that we have opportunities on multiple fronts of the business to become bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that the 12% is representative of the kind of trust that we have. And this goes to the Zappo acquisition that I was mentioning. We bought Zappo because we recognized that that was a very unique asset, doubling down on this store of crypto that this custodian had kind of accumulated over time. And that helped us kind of create the foundation to continue to build Coinbase custody. And so when you think about that that 12% number to me conveys the trust that both our retail and institutional investors have in parking their assets at Coinbase.
It seems like legislators are paying attention to crypto, but there is not broad agreement in any way, shape, or form about how crypto should be regulated. What was your takeaway from that hearing?
I was very optimistic after that hearing. If you heard the tone and tenor, it was so positive, and it was almost this acknowledgement that the US is so behind the times in terms of approving a Bitcoin ETF, in terms of the innovation that's starting to kind of go offshore. And so I felt like it was this like reckoning, almost like an acknowledgement that we need to make sure that innovation and entrepreneurship happens in the United States. I think that with any of these new technologies that are kind of not quite fully understood, you're going to have, dissonant voices. You're going to have people who don't understand it. But what I heard from that, which made me really happy, was that these lawmakers wanted to actually learn more and embrace it more.
So what can and should regulation look like?
For us, what we've asked for is very simple. We just want one regulator. We don't want a new regulator per se. Maybe we could, but it's really about one regulator so that we can have much more clarity about the whole kind of cradle to grave activities that one uses with crypto. And so that's what we're asking for. And I think right now there's not clarity. I think we've mentioned that we have more than 50 regulators alone in the US, and we can navigate that and we embrace it. We've always leaned into regulatory, but for the crypto ecosystem to thrive, we need to have like fair rules, we need to have transparency, and we need to have more clarity.
But what do you think is actually going to happen in terms of regulation, and what kind of scenarios are you preparing for if, for example, the U.S. takes a route that looks closer to what China is doing than El Salvador?
Yeah, for Coinbase, the U.S. is the home that we grew from, and we feel so excited about continuing to build in the U.S. I don't know what's going to happen, but again, the tone that I'm hearing is one of optimism. And I think that you're seeing that even in these places like Miami and New York. Eric Adams in New York recently announced that he wants to create a crypto education program for all New York City schools. And so I think that the more that we see of that, the more that entrepreneurship and innovation is going to thrive in the US. Now, that said, we're a global company and we're investing very heavily. It's part of our mission, right, to increase economic freedom in the world, to grow globally. And so as we do that, we're going to want to make sure that we have optionality in other markets, given some of the kind of uncertainty in the US right now.
Now, there were some pricing glitches on Coinbase yesterday that showed astronomical prices for a time. Some users thought they had hit the jackpot. What caused that?
We are dependent upon another provider, CoinMarketCap, for data. And so there was a glitch. It didn't actually cause anything other than the superficial thing that you saw with the pricing. I think it's honestly just one of the things that is kind of indicative of an emerging industry. We're still building out infrastructure to make sure that this stuff scales in the right way. And so when we have providers that sometimes have those glitches, we're going to be impacted by that.
Right. So as you say, these glitches and outages do happen, and they happen kind of frequently. What sort of safeguards do you have in place to prevent them, and what kind of infrastructure do you imagine building over the longer term?
Yeah. You have to remember, crypto is 24/7. It's always on. We have literally never seen the type of technology scaling that we would need to do for this, given the number of users and requests per second that we get. And so it's an exciting thing for us because we have these new milestones almost every week where it's like, okay, well, this was a big, hairy, audacious goal not too long ago, and now just blew through that. So we embrace the challenge, and we're investing a lot in making sure that our infrastructure scales a lot faster and creates more reliability. I think for us, as we grow through this and we're building out that team, the infrastructure team and all of that, I think the big thing for us is just making sure that we communicate very clearly with customers about what's happening so they're not surprised.
Right. And what do you have to say to customers who are wondering, gosh, is my money safe with you? Is my money safe in crypto?
I will say, this is the bedrock of the company that Brian and Fred built, which is security, safety, ease of use. And so we have never had a hack on the system. It's something that we double down on security every year. We are always on top of every new emerging technology that exists in the security space. And I feel really confident about where we are on that.
Now, earlier this year, Coinbase got a notice from the SEC about your lending product, that you had to axe the lending product. Alessia said at the hearing that Coinbase still doesn't understand why. Talk to us about the nature of your relationship with the SEC right now. Brian has indicated, of course, that it's complicated.
Yeah, yes, it's complicated. That's a good little summary for it. Brian and I had a great meeting with Chairman Gensler a couple of weeks ago. I think that we've always been totally good about leaning into regulatory. I think that what we want to do as Coinbase is make sure that we're raising our hand when we feel like the rules of the road are not clear. There's that we lack transparency, even playing ground with potentially other crypto companies or other financial services companies. And so that was why Brian wrote the tweet storm that he did. Mm-hmm. I think that for us, that particular issue wasn't an existential one for us. We are genuinely trying to create a world in which crypto companies can thrive and blossom and understand what the rules are. And so that was the intent of that. And I think that we will continue to have a strong relationship with the SEC going forward.
What else can you share about that meeting with Chair Gensler? And how do you leverage the relationship that you have with the SEC to have an influence over these rapidly developing markets and practices and, regulatory issues around the world?
Yeah. I mean, I won't share any details about the meeting. I think we wanted to just make sure that we had a face to a name, that we were starting to build the relationship much more proactively. I think that in general, what we want to see from the agencies is that they kind of understand who owns what part of things. This is my point about having one regulator. It would be so much more sensible to kind of have transparent rules and then know who to go for what. Right now, I think there's a little bit of opacity around that. And I think that anybody would acknowledge that. I think that we're playing by rules from the Howey test is from the 1920s and so on. And so we just need to make sure that we're updating the frameworks that we're using to evolve for digital assets, because the genie is out of the bottle in that regard.
Now, there is competition. FTX, other exchanges have been moving in aggressively. What are you seeing on the competitive front? And do you see Coinbase maintaining the first mover advantage that it's had?
I say this very genuinely. We welcome competition in this space, and we actually get energy from it. On the more traditional front, you've got some of the fintech players like PayPal, Square, and Robinhood getting into crypto. And we actually think that's incredible for crypto because it creates just more validity. It's a mark of validity for the whole space. What those competitors do that is great. I think that they're not able to kind of think about the bleeding edge crypto native things that we think users are going to want more and more. On the crypto first front, incredible competitors like Binance. We love the speed at which they execute. They really deliver what their users want in a really rapid way. What we offer in that regard is going to be more of the compliant first, regulatory first approach with all the things that we talked about before: ease of use, security, safety, and regulatory. And so we play our own game. We take inspiration from the ecosystem. And in many cases, like if we see incredible companies in the space, we're going to try to acquire them.
And you actually did corp dev at LinkedIn for many years. Yeah. And as I understand it, in your conversations with Brian, because he was also excited about M&A, that really attracted you to the job.
Totally. I mean, like what I'd say is look at the data of most companies. They, again, talk a big game about M&A. They don't actually do M&A. And I think that one of the things when I met Brian, just given my whole history with corp dev, I could feel that he wanted to do M&A in a major way. And that was really exciting to me because I think that there's sometimes an instinct for people to say, I can build that. It's not that hard. In Brian's case, he's like, hey, if they're building it, awesome. Like, let's seek out that entrepreneur from the other company and bring them in and bring that innovation in-house.
Coinbase Ventures is your baby, and you came up with this idea to invest in startups off the Coinbase balance sheet. There's no separate fund or anything like that. There's no dedicated necessarily employee base focused on this, and you've invested in like 200 startups so far. Where are you placing your bets? Why? How does it fit into the bigger vision? How do you make sure you're not seeding the next Coinbase?
Yeah, we'd be thrilled to see the next Coinbase because we want the best product to win, and we think that if we have a stake in those companies, we're going to evolve just like other companies are going to evolve. Like the Act 2, Act 3 of Coinbase is going to be very different than what Act 1 was. The primary goals of Coinbase Ventures are incredible insights and relationships with the key ecosystem players. We are always seeking out the best and brightest teams and ideas. To that end, I think we've gone all over the map in terms of investments, but thematically, infrastructure has been a big piece of this. So Bison Trails, which is our crypto AWS play, we ended up acquiring them, and Alchemy and some others. You've spent some time with Nikhil. The Metaverse is really interesting. We were early in OpenSea, and there's a bunch of other interesting companies emerging in that space. International, we did CoinSwitch this year. We did Rain, which is in the Middle East. So we're playing all around with India, Middle East, and other areas of opportunity. And I just think DeFi is obviously that other category that's super interesting for us. And so we're investing in interesting companies like Compound in that space.
What does the metaverse look like to you? What's crypto's role in the metaverse? What's Coinbase's role in the metaverse?
Yeah. So when I think about the web, I think like Web 1 was oriented around static web pages, and it was the beginning of something big. I think Web 2 was oriented around social, but within fairly closed systems. And then Web 3 to me is oriented around all the principles that are inherent to crypto and blockchains. And so I think they're built on, I think of Web 3 and the metaverse as being built on a lot of crypto infrastructure. So what that means to me is like the way that Coinbase will participate in that is we have the building blocks of infrastructure through things like Coinbase Cloud, which is what or AWS for developers for crypto. Wallet, Coinbase Wallet, this idea that you have your own identity, transfer of value that would play in these virtual worlds and so on. And all the principles that we care about, like decentralization, privacy, and so on, are more inherent in these. The other thing with this is that the creators in the metaverse get to disproportionately kind of benefit through token economies and so on. And so I think that's the evolution that will happen.
And should Facebook and Google and centralized big tech behemoths be worried? Should they be, are they threatened?
I think that there's no doubt that decentralization is a threat to social media companies. I think that if I were in their shoes, I would be playing in different ways to kind of experiment with efforts, whether it's on the ventures front or just having sandboxed areas where they can kind of experiment in these areas.
Like trying to pivot to the metaverse, maybe?
Yeah, yes, imagine that.
We have a question from our audience, which is, how do you deliver and transact crypto if there is no internet? Half the world is still not connected. How do you think about that question, especially as you think about how do we get more people of color, more women into crypto? Twice as many men as women own crypto to this day.
Yeah, I think this is something that we need to kind of make sure folks realize more of, is that in a world where you have a mobile phone, you basically have the equivalent of a bank in your pocket now. And that's where we want to make things like crypto to crypto more accessible around the globe to people who have been historically underserved. And I think that's the cool thing about crypto is it sees no color, it sees no gender. If you want to learn about crypto, if you want to get into the crypto economy, you basically just have to hustle and really understand the space and get involved. And I think that's the coolest part of it. We're excited about how that affords access to everyone in the world.
Some of your rivals, FTX, Crypto.com, have been investing in celebrity and arena endorsements. Coinbase now has a partnership with the NBA. You just did a deal with Kevin Durant. Are we going to see Coinbase pour more marketing dollars into some of these initiatives, and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense?
Yeah. The TLDR for this is we are investing heavily in marketing that we think is authentic to Coinbase. So we're going to do things that we think are very kind of unique and authentic to us, and not just do what everybody else is doing. We think that what they're doing is great. Actually, it creates a great halo effect around the whole crypto economy, and so we're super into it. But you know, we're doing interesting things, like we're doing a bunch of esports. We're doing chess competitions. We're doing things that we think are kind of have these crypto vibes with Art Basel and so on. And so we're playing our own game there. I think, you know, we have had the good fortune of having to this point a huge base of organic users. And this was the year where we were like, I don't think we're fully taking advantage of the marketing opportunity we have. So to that end, we hired Kate Rao, an executive from Facebook, to run marketing, our first ever CMO. And we're investing a lot in growth marketing, product marketing, and brand marketing.
DeFi and NFTs, how do these turn into long-term trends? Like, paint the picture for me. I don't know, 5 years. 5 years,
okay. So for DeFi, I think that this is the classic disruption story of the traditional financial system. And again, it's about trustless systems, decentralization, and this idea that you have autonomy over your keys. Now, to get there, you can imagine that there's going to be a transition from a fully centralized type of financial system to a fully decentralized type of system. You owning your private keys and ever forgetting that's a difficult thing to have. And so we think about the ease of use of that, of how we can transition users to that world where they have full control over their assets, but we do it in a way where it's user friendly. And then on the NFT front, I mean, we've announced that we're going to be launching Coinbase NFTs. I think that this is something where it's really fun kind of version of, how can everyone participate in the crypto economy? This is something where it's very tangible. People can feel the excitement around NFTs. And so us being a marketplace for those NFTs just feels like a natural extension of getting our 70 million users, exposing them to these and having them participate in the crypto economy.
Last quick question, because we're out of time. Would you say 2021 has been the tipping point, the year that we, veered towards mainstream adoption, or is that yet to come?
I absolutely think we've hit mainstream adoption. So I think that the latest figures are like 12% of Americans use crypto. I think that globally we're at 200 million users. And if you look and track the adoption of internet, we're actually on pace or accelerating what the early internet was on the crypto front. And so I think we're there. I think that there's no doubt that usability is the biggest thing and some level of regulatory clarity to kind of get it to the next point. And the interesting mark to me will be when we hit 1 billion users globally in crypto, because I think that's where everything basically is.
When does that happen?
If you look at current kind of pace, it would be within the next 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a big one. We get to 1 billion in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Emilie Choi, President and COO of Coinbase. So great to have you here in the studio. Thanks for coming in here.
Thank you for having me, Emilie.
To join us.
Always a pleasure.
And for joining us at the Bloomberg Technology Summit. Guys, I'll send it back to you.